It's Wednesday, and that means plant and garden expert Craig Hignight is joining us live to answer all of your burning questions. Good morning, Craig.
Good morning.
Yes. Okay, well, we have one question, which we were like, you have to ask this. So it was a caller question. A male deer rubbed his antlers on a young peach tree, damaging its bark. What can I do to save the tree?
Okay, what we have to do is go out and take a look at the tree. If Mr. Deer did not get all the way around the trunk, you've got a chance, or the tree has a chance. If the bark has been removed all the way around the tree is toast. But if there's still intact bark, just wrap the tree and get some stakes around it so that the deer doesn't come back and finish the job. And remember, put those stakes up every September 1st to protect the tree.
Okay, now we've got a second question from Pam on Facebook. She wants to know, she just planted some perennials. Does she keep watering them until the ground freezes?
Yes, we are going to water clear out into early December. Our ground does not freeze until right around Christmas time. I mean, freeze solid. We'll have some frost. But the thing is, don't forget your trees and shrubs, especially evergreens. We want all of these plants fully hydrated when the ground finally freezes in mid-December, so don't put those hoses away just yet.
Okay, we have Janine asking, well, she asked two questions. I can quickly answer the first one. She asks, are you only on every other week now? Because some weeks I do not get your show. Sometimes if Craig is not here, he's on every week. If he's not here, he's usually probably somewhere warm.
Last week it was a bad back. I'm sorry.
But he is here usually every week, I promise. But she also asks if I bring in my geraniums in the winter, do I have to cut them back?
I wouldn't necessarily cut them back now. Most of your leaves are going to be out at the tips of the stems. You might cut a few selective long branches back a little bit, but you want to do your real pruning about the 1st of March next year. That gives you 8 weeks before the new growth has a chance to mature before they go back out between Mother's Day and Memorial Day, and it does take 8 weeks to get new bloom after you cut a geranium back.
All right, and we have a question from Anita. She wants to know, how do you take care of hibiscus indoors, and then when do you plant them outside? Two-parter.
Okay, hibiscus indoors, and boy, I hope we don't get a frost in the next 5 days. I've got some hibiscus that I've got to bring in. They should be brought in on a day when they're about ready for water. Get them into the sunniest window you've got, and past that, it's taking care of them like any house plant. Every couple of days, you give them a quarter turn. Only that side closest to the window is going to get the light. You can probably really hold back on the fertilizer now. We're just trying to keep the carcass alive, so water sparingly and don't overwater. That's the important thing. That's why I don't want it watered before it comes in the house. It would be instantly overwatered. And then, you know, they can go back out sometime between Mother's Day and Memorial Day when we're finally getting temperatures consistently above 55, 60 degrees.
Mother's Day is always the one to keep in mind. All right, we have Greg asking, should I cut my perennial lilies down in the fall or just leave the stems?
Well, they can be cut back, you know, in the fall. We've got two camps here. We've got some people that leave the perennial border intact. That protects the good insects, the insects that benefit the garden. I know some people have to have their gardens absolutely clean, solid. And once we get a killing frost, yes, you can go ahead and clean your perennial borders right down to bare ground. It isn't going to hurt anything.
All right, and Deb says, earlier this year we had the high winds that broke my fence right where I'm growing my best clematis. Is that correct? Is that okay? Just making sure. She wants to know, would it be okay to cut it down to maybe shoulder or even waist high so she can move it to a different location? She believes it is the type that does not need to be cut back, but wants to know if she should.
Well, you're in luck. This is exactly the right time to go ahead and move a clematis. If you get it out of the ground, back in the ground, get your root stimulator on it. And yes, cut it back to about 10 inches above the ground. You've got to take pressure off that root system that's going to be severely damaged in the transplanting process. Get it moved. I would actually mulch it in for the winter. Next spring, it's not even going to know it's been touched.
All right, we'll have questions coming up from Nick, Sebastiana, and Patrick coming up right after the break. Stick with us and get your questions in on Facebook. We'll be right back.
We're talking to plant and garden expert. I can't talk today. Craig Hignight. We're still taking some of your questions. Go ahead, Morgan.
Yeah, we're starting off with Nick. He says, I had a huge tree taken down and stump ground out. Can I plant another tree there?
Yes, it's perfectly all right to put a tree in. We always try and suggest that you move the new tree 6 feet off the center of where the old tree was. Now you're going to be dealing with some roots out there, but that gets you away from the exact ground zero where the original tree was.
All right, and we have a question from Sebastiana. All this warm weather has blooms on plants showing up. Seeing a few on my strawberry plants, should I be covering them soon with straw?
Oh, yes, yes. We've got to be getting our strawberries covered before we get down to 20 degrees. At 20 degrees, you start losing next year's crop. So, yes, get that straw and get those strawberries covered.
Patrick is asking, is it too early to plant garlic and onions for next year, and should I add fertilizer?
Well, it's not too early. As a matter of fact, we're starting to almost run a little late, so I'd be getting them in the ground. And yes, some just bulb fertilizer, any fertilizer when they go in the ground, that'll give their roots a chance to take up some nutrients before they go completely dormant for the season.
All right, and Patricia is asking, is there a way to prevent apple scab on crabapple trees?
Oh, sure. Apple scab should be treated after all the flowers fall off. When we get to full petal drop, you go back in with a fungicide or an all-purpose fruit tree spray, and you should spray about every 10 days for at least 5 sprays to go ahead and keep the apple scab under control.
Barbara asks, what should I do to bring my amaryllis ready for blooming this winter when I bring them in from the garden?
Okay, amaryllis, you'll go ahead and bring them in. I would go ahead and repot them at that time. Then just put them in a closet for a while. You don't have to take the leaves off. Those are going to dry down and the food's going to go back into the bulb. As a matter of fact, that's a project I've got ahead of me. And then just put them in the closet for at least, again, 8 weeks. 8 weeks of dryness is what brings the amaryllis back into bloom. And believe me, when the amaryllis wants to bloom, it's going to let you know.
And Jeanne asks, right now my miniature rose bush has many blooms and blossoms on it. when do I cut back my miniature rose bush?
Oh, we aren't going to cut back on the roses until probably Thanksgiving. We've got to let the ground cool down a little bit more. The ground is still pretty warm, so if you go ahead and prune now, you're going to get new growth. Let the ground cool down. Thanksgiving would be a time to go ahead and do the pruning. Maybe put a little mulch on them to protect the crown for the winter. Should come through just fine for next year.
Hopefully I pronounced this right. Luann, soil temperature this morning is 56. So is it okay to plant tulip bulbs now?
Oh, I think we can go ahead and get our tulip bulbs. I noticed that, 2 weeks out, it's dropping way down temperature-wise. Just make sure that you get them deep enough. Most people don't plant bulbs deeply enough, and the pointy end of the bulb, whatever it is, should be at least 6 inches below ground level. 8 inches is even better.
All right, thanks, Craig, as always, for joining us for Wednesday.
Janet, you didn't send in a question.
Okay, be sure to join us every Wednesday on Facebook Live with Craig. There you can submit your questions and be a part of the conversation. Good Morning Quad Cities at 11 returns in just a few moments.